Good evening, everyone. So, we got a video about this Fox News expert on small business. Okay, we're going to dig into some of the things he said. I was listening to him this morning and I just thought, man, I got to make a video about this guy. This guy is the perfect example of everything that is wrong with the expert class in America today. And small business is going to save us from these repulsive people. Okay, so we're listening to the video real quick. We're going to respond kind of as we go through. I'm going to hit some points about tariffs, about manufacturing, and we're going to go through this guy's background, which is hilarious, right? This is the guy who's an expert about small business. Okay, so here, let's dig in this thing.
One JP Morgan chief economist says, quote, we believe supports are coming together that will arrest this labor market slowdown and revive activity growth later next year. I want to bring in Job Creators Network CEO Alfredo Ortiz. So what is your outlook and what do you make of their assessment that the first half of the year is going to be difficult, but the second half, because they add, you're going to get tax cuts, you're going to get interest rate cuts. All of that is going to be meaningful to the economy.
Well, Cheryl, thank you so much, and Happy New Year. Thank you for having me. Look, when I
Okay, so here's the thing. Tax cuts are awesome, right? There's no tax cuts always help everyone. As small business owners, we're able to hire people, buy equipment, pay taxes, invest in R&D, all these kind of things. That all makes sense, right? There's nothing wrong with tax cuts, right? What they're not talking about though is it also goes to the big corporations, right? So the big corporations that send 1,000 jobs overseas get the same tax cuts as the small business who is hiring American people and training American workers, right? And the big corporations will say, well, we're hiring Americans too. But yeah, they're not hiring manufacturing workers. They're taking a job that pays $2.50 an hour in China, and they're bringing that whatever that delta between the $30 they would pay, which is whatever 27.50 an hour, and then they're hiring a data analyst, or they're hiring a tax accountant, right? Or they're hiring a sales associate, or they're hiring a contractor to build a new retail location. They're hiring people to do things other than make the products that they sell.
when people ask me the question about the future of the economy, I always say look to Main Street, not Wall Street when it comes to that. Remember that two-thirds of new job growth is in the hands of small business owners. Large employers might be the larger employers overall in the country, but two-thirds of new job growth is in the hands of small business owners. And so as the Trump administration has really championed, key economic pro-growth policies, it's really helped our small business owners, two in particular that were passed at the One Big Beautiful Act, was immediate expensing, and also the permanency of the 20% tax deduction. Those two right there are turbo charging, I think, the American small business owner.
Okay, so immediate expensing is super helpful. But again, if you are competing with people that are working for $2.50 an hour, where you got to pay people $30 an hour, 20% tax rate is not going to help you, right? It's not going to fix it. Immediate expensing, not going to fix you, because guess what? If the Nike shoe company buys a machine to make shoes in China, right, they get to write off that machine just like the small business does, right? So there's no way for the small business to have a better hand in this particular scenario. And again, this is the small business guy, okay? In just a second, we're going to go into this guy's background. We're going to look at what he's done. Has he ever started a small business? Does he know what small business is? Who exactly is this Alfredo Ortiz guy, right? He's got this cool, what is this thing called? He's got some kind of jobs business, right? We'll dig into this stuff in just a second. Let's listen to a few more seconds.
And so I actually think that we're going to see a lot of those policies really come online, and that growth, which is really kind of a lot of sort of small business owners were really waiting for that to happen. And on July 4th, that did happen. And so a lot of those plans are going to come online. And I think we're going to see small business hiring really pick up.
Mhm.
So the 20% tax rate didn't change, right? I'm not going to hire someone because the tax rate stayed the same, right? It did. The tax rate isn't going to help me to hire people. Again, we're a small business. We work in small dollars. If you're a massive corporation, a small additional tax cut is very beneficial to you, right? This idea of immediate expensing of equipment, fine. I love expensing my equipment, but again, it helps the large corporation too, who uses the third world to make everything to bring back into America and sell it as though they're an American brand. They are not an American brand. Nike is not an American brand. Restoration Hardware is not an American brand, right? These companies, they have everything made overseas, bring it back here and sell it like it's this great American story. It used to be Nike used to be a great story. I'm from Oregon. They started in Beaverton, if I remember correctly. Again, they started outsourcing everything in the 90s and never supported that company since. There's no need to.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to the tariff, I think a lot of our small business owners understood why Trump was actually doing that to really try to bring a little, not necessarily free trade, because I don't think we'll necessarily have free trade, but a fairer trade and really bring back, investments back into the United States. Remember, almost $10 trillion now has been committed to the United States to bring jobs back online and back to the American worker. And so I do think that job growth is really going to be just increasing from here. A lot of our small business owners, again, two-thirds of new job growth in the hands of those small business owners, were really putting their plans on hold until a little bit of the tariff kerfuffle or dust.
So this guy's completely full of shit, right? Small businesses weren't waiting for the tariff kerfuffle, right? We have to operate no matter what. Whether there's a 0% tariff or a 100% tariff on the third world, we still have to make stuff because we're here in America, right? We could opt to do the same thing that everyone else does and then just outsource everything and bring it back here and then turn a profit that way. But again, that's bitch shit as far as I'm concerned, right? So what this guy's saying is that American businesses were waiting to figure out if the tariffs were going to be 100% or 0%. And he's like, oh, they've got some breathing room now that the tariffs have come down. It's like he's basically saying that American business is outsourcing to the third world, right? That's what everybody wants to do is have all their shit made overseas, white label it, have, Chin and Chang make it, whereas Phil, Bob, and Sally, they can go do something else, right? They don't have to worry about using their hands. They're going to be knowledge workers. And like, how did that work out, right? So this guy's okay, let's dig in this guy's background real quick before I go any further, because I detest these kind of people. They drive me crazy. Okay, we're gonna go to Grok here, guys. I'm always using Grok. So we're gonna ask some quick questions here. Tell me who this Alfredo Ortiz guy is that's always on Fox News.
Alfredo Ortiz is the president and CEO of the Job Creators Network, JCN, one of the biggest small business advocacy groups in the country, about 100K members. That's why you see him on Fox all the time. Fox and Friends, Hannity, Varney, Cavuto, The Five. Basically, any segment about regulations, taxes, inflation, or how's Main Street doing, they call him. Quick rundown. Grew up in California, son of Mexican immigrants. Has an MBA from Pepperdine. Worked in finance, private equity early on. Took over JCN around 2016 and turned it into the go-to small business voice on the right. They run the big billboards in Times Square that say Bidenflation is crushing small business, etc. Very pro-Trump, pro-deregulation, pro-tax cuts, and lately he's been hammering the reshoring manufacturing message hard, basically saying the same stuff you and I talk about: tariffs, training, bring the factories back. He's not an elected official or a think tank academic. He's literally paid to represent owners like you, so he's usually one of the only guys on TV who actually knows what a P&L looks like. That's the guy. When he's on, it's almost always because they want the real small business owner take instead of another senator.
So Grok, has he ever owned a small business?
No. Alfredo Ortiz has never owned or run a small business himself. His official bio and every interview he's ever done, including Fox Profiles and JCN's own site, only list. Grew up in a family that owned a small landscaping business, his dad's. Worked in private equity and finance after his MBA. Big firm stuff. Became a paid executive at Job Creators Network in 2014 and president CEO in 2016. He's a professional advocate and spokesman, very sharp, knows the talking points cold and genuinely pushes small business issues, but he's never signed the front of a payroll check or had to figure out how to make rent when a big box store undercuts him. He's the voice, not the owner.
And there you go. So yeah, this guy, and again, Grok, kind of tries to talk him up just a little bit, but this guy he is a paid activist for business, right? And they like to say small business because it sounds good. It plays good on television, but the truth is this guy doesn't give a fuck about small business, right? What he's advocating for are things like tax cuts and deregulations, which are good for everyone. They're good for small business and they're good for large business. But the problem is that he was never advocating for what the third world has done to America, right? He has never advocated for big businesses to stop sending all the work overseas and to start fucking making things here again. He was never that advocate because he doesn't care about that. What he cares about is deregulating for big business, deregulating for offshoring. He cares about getting taxes down. He cares about these kind of things that are good for everybody, which is ultimately good for big business. And this guy is paid by big business, right? I bet if we look into who pays this guy, the 100,000 members, you're going to find out that 10 of them pay 90% of the bill, and the other 90,990 people pay the rest of it, right? So you know what this guy's doing. And again, MBA, right? All you need to know about this guy is he has an MBA, which means he does not give a fuck about small business, right? And again, you cannot talk about this subject with a clean, nice demeanor, because that's not how people in small business talk. We don't act this way. We don't look like this guy. We don't talk like this guy. This guy does not represent us. And I find it laughable that this is the guy that supposedly has the message, right? He's the advocate for small business. He's never owned a business in his life. Oh, my dad had a small landscaping business. It's always somebody else that did the work. You just did the private equity and the financing, got your MBA, and then now you get paid to basically be on a board and advocate for people with whom you've never even met or have no ties to whatsoever. Like, just fucking disgusting. Absolutely disgusting.
Really kind of settled, and that has settled. And I think with some of these tariff pullbacks, which have been very smart, that Trump has just recently announced, I think a lot of that is going to help.
I want to ask you about that because the Trump administration is delaying tariff increases for a year on imported upholstered furniture, kitchen cabinets, and vanities due to the ongoing negotiations with trading partners. Now, the U.S. was set to double tariffs on cabinets and vanities to 50% starting today, and then it was going to be 30% on upholstered furniture. So these are pro-business policies. But how does that affect the job market? Because this, to me, is not just tradespeople, craftsmen, but also the small businesses that you've been referencing. That is the growth. If they know that they're going to have another year without these heavy tariffs on top of them, I would think that they may be more willing to hire, to build, to expand, to produce.
That's right. If there's no tariff, small business is going to be more willing to hire and expand. The tariffs are bad, right? You hear this dumb woman, right? Maria, is her name Maria Barter? I don't know, it's Maria something, right? Again, this woman knows nothing about small business, right? Has probably never owned a small business. We should probably look into her thing real quick. Sorry guys, I don't want to talk out of turn here. I like to kind of know who I am here. Let's get with Grok real quick. Hey, Grok, can you give me Maria Bartiromo on Fox's background?
Maria Bartiromo. First, she's been on TV since 1992, started at CNBC as the first reporter ever to report live from the floor of the NYSE, every day, at the open, at the close. Did it for 15 years. Became money honey because Wall Street suits would stare at her legs instead of the Dow. Got tired, jumped to Fox in 2013 for triple the cash. She's 60 now, grew up in Brooklyn, daughter of a pizza guy and a secretary. Degree in mass comms, married to a hedge fund dude who owns a horse farm upstate. No kids. On air, she's the one they call when the market tanks. Hannity trusts her, the viewers trust her, the traders trust her. She's not opiniony like Cavuto, not sarcastic like Ingram. She's the calm voice that says the banks are getting bailed out and your 401k's on fire, and somehow that sounds reassuring. Loves the market, hates the Fed, loves Trump, hates regulation. Simple.
So, Grok, has she ever owned a small business?
No. Maria Bartiromo has never owned or operated a small business. Her entire career has been big-time finance and media. Maitressed at her dad's restaurant as a teenager. Employee, not owner. Producer and on-air reporter at CNN Business and CNBC. Anchor executive editor at Fox Business, Fox News since 2013.
I'm not even going to finish. There's no point in even finishing, okay? So you guys see a theme here, right? And again, the only reason this Alfredo guy can do what he does is because the work was sent overseas. So all that excess capital comes in here and people can afford to play cucks like this guy. They can pay him all this money to advocate for their industry, even though he knows nothing about their industry, right? This Maria Bartiromo chick, same deal. She's going to talk about what's good for small business, talk about tariffs like she knows anything. And again, she's never been in the business, right? She acts like she knows our business, but has never been in our business. And this completely bothers me. And again, this is the thing I think people are terrified of. If tariffs come in and the third world labor is crushed, right? You're going to have more people starting businesses. And as more people start businesses, they're going to realize they're going to realize that these people are full of shit, right? They're all paid shills for their advertisers, for big business, and the people that support the institutions that they work for. They don't care about the small business owner. In fact, all they care about is making their money, finding some hot hedge fund guy to marry, making sure you get your MBA and you get all your contacts so you can get your board jobs. You can get your consulting gigs and all these jobs that don't actually do anything for small business. Whew, this feels rough.
Yeah, Cheryl, I think that's right. Look, what the Trump administration, I think, has shown is that flexibility to actually pivot when they have to. And I think they knew that these were a couple of areas that they had to show some flexibility on for our small business owners. We actually have a few of our members that are actually in the kitchen cabinet remodeling. And I have to tell you, they're very relieved from this, kind of relief that they've actually seen from the Trump administration. That was going to be a big hit. But I will tell you, what
Relief. Okay, let's talk about what do you guys think relief is, right? Is relief, that they have more money in their pocket to hire people because there's less competition from the third world, right? Is there relief from, the cost of their materials has gone down, right? Because they don't have to compete with the third world. Like, is there something that has helped the small business, right? Did their taxes go down, right? Did their insurance go down? What is this guy talking about here? I'll show you. So let's go back to our good old friend Grok here. This is a great one, okay? Hey Grok, in what part of the world are the majority of the kitchen cabinets and vanities made for the American market?
Right now, in January 2026, the overwhelming majority, roughly 65 to 70%, of kitchen cabinets and bath vanities sold in the US are still made in China. Breakdown of where the rest come from: 2025-2026 import data. China, 65 to 70%. Vietnam, 18 to 20%, growing fast, now the clear number 2. Indonesia, 4 to 6%. Malaysia, 3 to 4%. Thailand, Mexico, Canada, and everyone else, the remaining 5 to 8% combined. US-made cabinets? Only about 10 to 12% of the total market volume, mostly semi-custom and full custom shops. The big box stock and semi-stock lines are almost all imported. Even with the current 25% tariffs and the threatened jump to 50 to 100% in 2027, China still dominates the volume game because the landed cost gap is so massive. Vietnam is eating some share every year, but it hasn't flipped the leaderboard yet.
The landed cost gap, right? And that is your labor, that is your regulations, that is your EPA, your OSHA, your taxes, your transportation, right? That is all these things, the cost of your insurance, right? Are you going to be sued, right? You got to keep a lawyer on retainer. The taxes you got to pay to every state, county, city, federal government, right? You have to actually pay businesses to deal with the nexuses in every individual state. Once you have $150,000 in the state of Florida, you then have to pay additional tax on top of that if you are selling products into that state. And every state varies, right? So the amount of shit we have to deal with here in America in order to make a product here, whereas if you do the third world, you don't have to deal with almost any of that. Oh yeah, and the labor is like 95% cheaper than in America. Unbelievable. This guy knows nothing about what he's talking about.
they told me is they'll figure it out. And that is the beauty of the small business owner in this country, the resiliency of the small business, right? Remember that they're just coming off the heels of kind of this Biden inflation era of almost 10% inflation. And so Trump has been able to stabilize that inflation over this time frame. And I think now they're seeing that.
Would you rather pay an additional 10% in inflation, or would you rather be competing with the third world who has to pay 10% of the labor costs that you have to pay here in America? Like, what would you rather have? Like, inflation sounds good to me. Just cut off the third world where everyone makes $2.50 an hour with no regulations. That sounds great to me. I'll take inflation all day long, right? I'll take additional taxes. The people just can't wrap their minds around how insanely cheap it is to make stuff over in the third world. And most of your large American corporations, that's how they make their money, right? And again, they throw the regulations on the small business owner and everybody else so that it's very difficult for us to have enough free cash to do all the things that these businesses are able to do. Now, if we would just say, you know what, fuck it, we're just going to do the same thing that they do, and we would take our products, give them to the third world so that China can then rip them off, or Vietnam can then sell them to all their buddies, and did it that way, we probably would have more capital. We probably could do more things and be like all these other companies. But you know what? We don't. We refuse to be like these people. And this guy is not an advocate for these small businesses, because he's not talking about the one thing that would help the American manufacturer more than anything, which is cut off the third world and charge 400% tariffs on everything coming in this country. If you want to have smaller tariffs on materials, you want to have a smaller tariff on steel, aluminum, hell, plywood, hardwood, whatever, semiconductor, not semiconductor, magnets, whatever products you want. If it's just a simple material, I could see that being acceptable. But this idea that you can just take all the labor and the heritage of all these industries and send them to the third world where they could care less about them, and then it comes back here and we're relegated to have jobs like tech manager, what's this guy, board member, right? Maybe you're a data analyst, you're a phone salesperson, you're what do they call it, a tech executive, customer service representative. These are all bullshit jobs, guys. Like it's it makes me so angry. All right, continuing.
Relief, and like I said, they're seeing the relief from the tariffs. That inflation that JP Morgan, for example, predicted, where is it? It never materialized. And so I think what we're seeing is a lot of those energy costs, savings that Trump has really championed from day one. I think those are now starting to flow through the economy, and we're going to start also seeing, I think, a decline in a lot of that inflation.
Okay, this fucktard doesn't understand tariffs, right? And you guys have heard me talk about tariffs many times at this point, okay? What this guy's saying, oh, the tariffs never materialized. Oh, it was fugazi. We don't know why they never materialized. It must have been the reductions in energy, blah, blah. The reason tariffs never materialized in America, and they did materialize, it was just in much smaller amounts than all the so-called experts were telling us. This guy was probably one of these people, oh, tariffs are going to make everything super expensive. I bet I could find a video of him crying about tariffs on April 1st when those tariffs dropped here in America last year. Okay, so the thing about tariffs is when you are an importer, right? So if I do hardware, right? I make hardware, I manufacture in India, right? So when I'm bringing in hardware, say I bring in whatever, $100,000 worth of hardware a year, okay? I order this shipment and say maybe I order $20,000 at a time, $30,000 at a time, okay? What I'm going to do is if I have to pay a 50% tariff on their products, I'm going to call my manufacturer in India. I'm gonna be like, look, dude, I got a 50% tariff here, man. What do you think about this, right? And he's gonna say, well, I don't know. I don't want to pay that. I can't afford to pay it. And I say, okay, well, I can't buy as much stuff from you, right? So instead of buying 20, 30,000, I'm probably gonna buy 15,000, right? And then he's gonna say, well, maybe we can work something out, because he wants the volume, because he needs the business. It's not like, we're the only people in the world that have to have business. Everyone that we deal with in the third world has to have business, right? So I say to him, hey, let's figure this out. Why don't you eat 10%, right? If you're bringing in, if I'm buying $20,000 worth of shit from you, why don't you take $2,000 off that, right? I'm going to eat, whatever, 10, 15% of that thing, right? So we're going to figure out how to eat it. Maybe I'm going to pass along 10, 15% to my customer. There's all kinds of ways you can eat this stuff, right? The transporter, right? The person that's bringing this stuff from the third world to the first world here in America, you can have conversations with them depending on how much you purchase, right? And you can say, maybe you guys are going to eat, a percentage of this as well. And as that thing trickles back here, we adjust our prices according to what we're able to do up the stream, right? Before the customer ever sees it, we've already done the negotiations and dealt with all the bullshit associated with getting that product to market here in America, right? So this guy, again, he's never owned a business. He's never had to deal with any of this stuff. He has no idea what he's talking about.
Well, we're still above that 2% target
Right.
that the Fed has, and pricing. We know that pricing is the messaging we're hearing from President Trump. So we'll see what the data gives us. But I do want to ask you about AI, because AI could reshape the labor market by automating jobs in sectors like technology, manufacturing, and even some services. Some investors predict it could displace up to 14% of human jobs alone. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think the ones that are going to be hurt the most, or unfortunately, are recent grads, MBAs. If you look at what AI technology really is being used for, it's a lot of that entry level type work that was really being done by these recent grads or a lot of our MBA grads. I really have to tell you that I really wish that a lot of our universities, both undergrad and grad school, really take this AI growth seriously and retool their entire way of doing business and really embrace the AI technology and start teaching their students, because I don't think they're prepared for this AI launch. And so, one thing that we'd love to see is a lot of these high tech companies work with, let's say, the Department of Labor or the Small Business Administration and actually go through the process of retraining and retooling a lot of these.
All right. What this goober is saying is he's basically saying, we got to retrain people, which we've heard many. I mean, how many times have you heard this? Learn to code. So what's the guy saying is that, we got to retrain people. We got to figure out how to re-educate people because the jobs that they're doing now are going to be gone. And so we got to make sure they have something to do before. Okay. But what this guy is failing to understand is that the work that we're going to retrain people to do now is the work that we were doing in the 90s before NAFTA and before we let China into the World Trade Organization and allowed every corporation in America to send all the labor and the skilled jobs and the skilled trades. We sent all that shit over to the third world. And once we sent all that stuff overseas, right, then we're like, well, what do we do with everyone? Well, let's send them to school. We got to give them to college. We got to train them how to do service jobs, right? Because think about service people technically are always selling, whereas manufacturing people are always making stuff. They're not selling. So businesses love it when you have people with degrees and people that, are tech analysts and people that are, marketers and all these kind of things. It's good for their businesses. But what this guy's saying is that we got to retrain these people. Okay. And guess what? We have a $1.7 trillion debt from all the people that we retrained for the last 20 years. All these kids that went to school, and every swinging dick got a business degree, right? They got a psychology. We got 5 million psychology degrees and 10 million business degrees. And guess what? They're worth nothing. Because all these people, they're not starting small businesses. They're hoping that job would get them to work for a corporation, right? Get them to work for a company that needed a small business degree or needed someone with a psychology degree. And these degrees are worthless, right? So we're basically going to train people, again, if we're in 1.7 trillion now, maybe it'll be another $1 trillion that we spend training people so that we can then do the work that we sent to the third world, right? We could bring back the plumbers, bring back the tradespeople, the furniture makers, the cabinet makers, the CNC operators, the frame carpenters, the concrete people, the finish carpenters, the roofers, all these people that made America what it is today, that we then let corporations outsource all that work, and we're left with this taupe, right angle, no ornate detail world that we live in now because all the craftspeople are gone. They all became psychologists and business degree majors and fucking MBAs like this goober right here, So this guy doesn't know anything about what he's talking about. This idea that we're just going to train everyone again, like that's just always going to be the answer. Like, how about you don't send the fucking jobs overseas, right? What a novel idea. Like, how about we just keep the work here and not allow corporations to basically circumvent the entire American system so that they can make a ton of money. Like, let's do that. That'd be a great thing, But the other thing this guy's saying about this, we need to train people to do these jobs. I've said it a million times. There needs to be a public-private partnership that pays businesses to train people. Fuck the colleges, fuck the trade schools. These people don't know how to do anything because they don't, the people that generally teach can't do, right? They failed in their business life. They failed trying to do the things they want to do. So they go teach, right? Very common saying, right? And the truth is that small businesses here in America could train all these people in no time. And guess what? If you paid the businesses to do it by offsetting some of the salary for these people that we have to train, right? The lower class people, the people that are just getting out of high school, the people that have these dumb fuck degrees that are almost unhireable, we can train these people with a little bit of help on our taxes from the federal government. Say $15,000 an employee. I can train them, give them skills, give them a real job. They'll be endeared to a company, right? They'll actually be endeared to a place that wants their skills, that has trained them, that understands who they are, what they bring to the table, instead of what we have now, which is a bunch of fucking college graduates that have no allegiance to business, but that have all the allegiance of the world to the place that they went to school, which essentially taught them nothing of value. And then they come to the taxpayer and say, hey, taxpayer, you fucking need to bail me out. I was like, wait a minute, motherfucker. I didn't make you go to school. Have the fucking college bail you out. They're the people that fucked up your life, So, I can do this a lot. I'm very passionate about small business.
these displaced workers because of AI and get them ready for these jobs that are coming from that $10 trillion of investment. We need to have that happen today.
I've got about 20 seconds, John Lonsky. Quick reaction from you before we go.
Well, I think it's very important that those companies that supply AI services do more with businesses, so they explain to the workers at these customers exactly how do you use AI.
Yeah, well, exactly. And what does AI do for processes?
And this is how these people that have never done anything. These people sit in boardrooms their entire life. They've been working, looking at balance statements and profit and loss statements forever. They never picked up a fucking hammer in their life. They couldn't tell you what the nailing schedule is on siding. They have no idea how to make anything. Right? Elon Musk talks about the Horn of Plenty. These people don't know what the fuck the Horn of Plenty is. They think that shit just materializes out of nowhere. And if you want to make something, you go to the third world and make it there because it's too expensive to do it here in America. That's the first thing that these people do. They are absolutely disgusting. Okay, so let's look at a quote from Elon Musk, who I really do admire, but he has a great quote here about, or I should say, a great conversation with Joe Rogan about the Horn of Plenty. For those of you guys that don't understand how things are really made in America, just basically encapsulated it beautifully. And there it is. All right, let's listen to this. This is pretty good. I mean, Elon Musk nails it. He understands making shit is hard. Right. And the truth is that these MBAs and these experts, they don't fucking want to do any of that stuff. In fact, all they want to do is the easy work, right? They want to look at balance statements, look at profit and loss statements, talk to bankers, right? Talk to regulators, lobbyists, all these kind of people. And then they want to send the work to the third world because it's too difficult to navigate all the regulations and all the tax bullshit, all the code of federal regulations, all the insurance bullshit that we have to deal with here in America. It's very difficult. Elon Musk is one of the people who's nailed it, and he talks very candidly about exactly how it works. So let's listen to him.
I mean, I've spent a lot of time in the factory.
We've talked openly about the difficulties of manufacturing and how complicated it is, and about most people aren't really aware of something that's as complex as, like, say, building a Tesla.
Yeah.
Manufacturing
is super hard and complicated. Like a lot of people they've never been in a factory, or they don't know how difficult it is to make things. And they, for a lot of people, I think just ketchup comes from the store. Like the store,
Right.
like just has like this is like people, like for a lot of people who've been in academia, or for all these like sort of socialist communist types, like they've never actually made anything. So they're operating on the premise that there's this magical horn of plenty that just outputs goods and services. And if someone's got more goods and services than someone else, it's because they took more from this magical horn of plenty. And I'm like, guys, there's no magical horn of plenty. There's no cornucopia. It's actually goods and services come from people working collectively, doing a lot of hard work to produce the goods and services that you like, and that you need.
And that's the truth. That's what I'll end this video on. So we've got a lot of people that they don't understand how manufacturing works. And they don't understand that when you take all the knowledge and the skills and you send them to the third world, while great for your EBITDA, right? Your profit and loss statement's fantastic, right? You go from paying someone $20-$30 an hour with benefits to paying someone $250 an hour with no benefits, right? No regulation. You don't have to navigate all the tax law, the regulations here, the OSHA, the EPA. You don't have to worry about employees suing you. You don't have to worry about having a break room so your employees have a nice place to eat. You don't have to worry about paying bonuses, all these kind of things, because the third world just wants to work, right? We got to fix that. We got to stop listening to these people that have never owned businesses, right? So I hope you guys have a fantastic night, and just understand that change is a coming, guys, and it all starts with getting these tariffs put in place. And I don't know if Trump has the stomach for it, but the America would be a much better place if we had more people making things, right? It would give us more competition, more choices for everybody. I mean, believe it or not, guys, the consolidation of every industry has hurt the amount of choices that you guys have today. And again, it's hurt our creativity as a country, right? It's hurt our creativity as a people, and everything is less beautiful and special than it would otherwise be. So you guys have a great night, and we'll do this again later.